Very good. Well, now, next on our agenda, we want to bring up our guest from IBR, the Interstate Bridge Replacement Project. We specifically have some speakers tonight to talk to us about the ground improvement study work that's happening at the ODOT facility. You've probably seen the trucks and things like that up there starting their work. So I do believe we have Megan Hodges, the IBR Community and Government Relations Manager here, and Nathan Potter, the IBR Construction Resident Engineer. Thank you very much for being here, and we will just turn over everything to you.
Terrific. I was just going to check in really quick with Megan. Are you driving the slides, or do you need me to drive slides?
I am driving the slides, but I know we sent them ahead of time. So let me know if I should share my screen or if
share your screen. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Let me get them pulled up. Or Latricia, do you have them ready?
Hi, baby.
Okay. We will get them pulled up here. And we had, I think, miscommunication on our side over who was sharing them. So we are here primarily to speak about the work that you guys have seen happening on that ODOT property at the permit center. But we don't want to only speak to just that piece of IBR, because I know that is only one piece of a larger project. So we wanted to make sure that we were addressing kind of the overall timeline. And I know the project has been doing a lot of internal work with a lot less going on externally. So I wanted to give you an update on what is happening. I will, looks like I have to request to be able to share. So I just hit that button. Okay, and I know we've been to your neighborhood a number of times, and a lot of you guys follow this project very closely. So I will probably be repeating a little bit, but I'll try to go through it quickly. So as you folks know, we are going through a supplemental environmental process, which means that because the efforts to replace the bridge had occurred previously, and there was approval to move to construction for that previous project, in order to get federal approval to move into construction on the IBR program, we have to supplement any analysis that was done previously before we can receive that federal approval. So that is is the work that has been ongoing. The analysis that we did and we shared with you folks, and I know many of you came to our open houses and to our online briefings. We studied what we refer to as the modified locally preferred alternative, and it was based on a number of things. It did include community engagement and input from the public. It included technical screening, traffic modeling to understand impacts to traffic and improvements to travel times. It included input from the local agencies that we work with that are all listed on this slide, and input from our advisory groups. In 2022, all of these agency partners approved that modified locally preferred alternative that was studied in the environmental process. And I know, and we hear from community groups and even some people at these agencies, that the project that we are proposing to move forward is not perfect, and there's different things that they would do. But the DOTs wanted to make sure that we were bringing as many people along as we developed. The departments of transportation wanted to bring as many people along as we developed that solution. So we included all of these agencies in that process, and they weighed in, and each agency had a board or council that took an action approving what was studied. And they did different versions of engagement as they, with their other like subcommittees or other councils that feed into their main council. And the program has advisory groups and an executive steering group that all of these agencies sit on. So that includes Oregon Metro, the Regional Transportation Council, TriMet, C-Trans, City of Portland, City of Vancouver, and both ports. So schedule, this says, this is a very, very high level schedule, which is intentional so that we can speak to it more. So right now we are still in the environmental process. So we published that document back in late 2024. And we received a number of comments. We received each comment that was submitted included many different comments. So each submission from neighborhoods or individuals or neighborhood associations or businesses included comments related to different things inside our environmental document, which means that we have 10,000 different topics and comments that we have to respond to. So our team has been doing that work over the last year, and each of those answers that we develop goes through review by our federal lead agencies. So that includes the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration. So it's not just the program that is developing those responses. We have experts in the environmental process to make sure that we are adequately responding to the variety of inquiries we receive, and that we are, responding to each individual piece within that comment. So it's been quite a long process and a lot of back and forth with those agencies. We are very close to completing that back and forth. And in addition to that, it's not just responding to those comments, but we heard feedback that we could be building something better, or we could choose an alternate path for our sidewalks or active transportation, or that we missed a piece of analysis, or that we could have done better analysis on certain things. And so we are also simultaneously doing that work. So I don't have very many specific examples of that off the top of my head, but that has been part of the work that has occurred over the last year, in coordination with the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration. So with all that, we hope to receive final approval on that document in early 2026, and that would be followed by the document that the Federal Highway Administration and Federal Transit Administration will publish, that approves us moving into construction. So in 2026 is when we anticipate moving into construction, but the engineers here that I work with always ask what I mean when I say we're moving into construction, because different folks define it differently. So when we say that we're moving into construction, that means that we will be putting out documents or procurement documents to get a construction contractor on board. It doesn't necessarily mean that we will start drilling in the ground or turning up a bunch of dirt. That may be part of some of that early work, but that doesn't mean that the day after we receive federal approval to move to construction, we'll have a shovel out there near where you guys are all the time. So there's quite a bit of work quite a bit of information that we will share in the future before actual roadway and bridge construction starts. We will have a more detailed schedule than what shows here, and we will communicate the direct and individual impacts to the roadways that you guys travel on, and you will have a better sense of the timing in which we will be doing specific work on Hayden Island, in the river, and in Vancouver. So right now, because we don't know exactly when that federal approval is going to happen, we don't have those and because we don't have a construction contractor on board, we don't have that more detailed information to share. But that is something that we will always communicate ahead of a construction project.
Okay.
So one other thing that we get a lot of interest on, so we just proactively included it, is whether we are building what type of bridge configuration we are building. So will it be a fixed span bridge or a movable bridge? We are, as you guys probably know from our environmental document, we had 3 different bridge configuration options in that document: single deck, double deck, and then a movable bridge. We hope to have that information determined by early 2026, but that's dependent on a number of things. We have submitted information to the Coast Guard that demonstrates that we have addressed impacts to river users that would allow us to build a fixed span bridge. They are reviewing that document, and they will hold a comment period to see if anyone comes forward to say that they would be impacted by that fixed span bridge. And that process will dictate the outcome of whether we get approval to build a fixed bridge or a movable bridge. So we hope for that decision to come in early 2026, but right now it has been put back on the Coast Guard. And we've kind of given them everything that we said we would provide them with in order to help them make that decision. And they have a few steps ahead of them before they will come back to us with that decision. So now the reason that we are here, so you guys, I'm sure, have seen, you know, this location probably better than I do, but I also go to Hayden Island all the time. So the former motor carrier permit site on Hayden Island, right in that location, we have been putting up some fencing and starting work to do some to test some soil strengthening methods. So this is from a planning grant that we got. This is funded through our existing funding and through a planning grant that we got through the Federal Highway Administration. So we have hired a contractor to come in there to test different methods to strengthen the soil. The soil under Hayden Island and in the North Portland Harbor area is fairly loose. And so this testing looks at different ways of making that soil stand up better if there was an earthquake, and then making it so that what we build on top of it will stand up better if there is an earthquake. So because we're doing it on existing Oregon Department of Transportation property, it would not impact any of the travel lanes or the roads that you guys drive on, but there will be a detour for the bike and pedestrian path. So the path that folks normally take to go in that tunnel underneath I-5, that path will be blocked, and we will instead be, I don't know if you can see my mouse, creating a temporary sidewalk or a detour sidewalk that goes around the outside of the property leading to that tunnel. And I'll let Nathan speak to this more specifically. I think they're in the process of constructing that detour, but it's not in place yet. So the data that we get from that assessment will help the companies that bid on those construction contracts and the designers that put together proposed plans for the investments that will go on Hayden Island. It will help them understand the which methods will work best and which ones are most cost effective as they develop their designs and proposals that they submit to the program when they bid on those construction documents. And I already addressed most of the rest of this. So I will let Nathan just high level hit the 3 methods that we are considering or that we're testing out there.
Okay, thank you, Megan. Just tying into what Megan said, what's happening right now is we are doing what is called bench testing. So you see a very small drill rig out there drilling holes in the ground. What we're attempting to do is pull up samples of the soil so that we can construct mixed designs to do these more traditional soil hardening methods. One of the methods we're going to try here is jet grouting. And essentially what this is we drill a hole into the ground with a very specialized drill head that allows us to inject high pressure water. And by high pressure, that's about 5,000 PSI. What we essentially do is liquefy the soil, not like as in an earthquake, but with actual water. And then we replace that void that we create with concrete and essentially withdraw that drill assembly, making a concrete column. And you do a number of these things in close proximity, you actually start changing the characteristics of that loose sand, sandy soil that it makes up Hayden Island, into something much harder, and which would allow us to put structures on top, such as bridge piers, approaches, and the like. Next slide. Another method that we're doing is called a vibrostone column. This does not involve concrete, it involves pebble, stone, and we have, again, another specialized piece of equipment. These pieces of equipment are a little bit bigger than what you see out there right now, but essentially what this does is it uses vibration to put a drill bit into the ground, and then we drop gravel, essentially pebbles, down that thing and use that same drill bit and vibration to compact the rock that we stick in there and back that out of the ground, creating essentially a stone column inside the ground that's compacted. Another method of hardening the soil. The next one. And the third one that we're doing is kind of an industry standard. This is called deep soil mixing. It's very similar to jet grouting. Instead of using high pressure water, we use a very large impeller type drill bit, and we inject concrete into a mechanical mixing process. As we withdraw the bit, we create essentially a mixed concrete and dirt column. Again, you overlap these and you create very hard sections of ground. The plan for the IBR construction is to be able to provide these methods to a future construction contractor to help them lower their risk in trying to figure out which would provide the best performance for the future bridge. And I think that's all I have, made. Short of responding to questions.
Yeah, and we'll get to questions at the very end. And then
Okay.
one other thing that we wanted to make sure folks were aware of just in advance of it happening. This one's a little bit farther out, but you guys may remember this, I think from late 2023 or so. We had a barge out on the river. It was both in the Columbia River and in the North Portland Harbor that was out there collecting soil samples below the river. We anticipate doing more of that work, and this would be happening in 2026, sometime in the first half of the year, but we don't have the exact dates yet because there's a process we have to go through with permitting and notification to river users. And this work will only happen in the Columbia River, though. We don't anticipate doing it in the North Portland Harbor. So it's a continuation of the previous work, but I know especially folks that are cross the bridge a lot or that have floating homes would be more interested in knowing what this is out there. So we want to make sure we let folks know ahead of time. And then this is just our normal slide. If you want to read more about the work that Nathan mentioned, we do have this location on the website. It's interstatebridge.org/HIGH for Hayden Island ground improvements. And it includes a little bit more information, or if you want to share it with others. So that is all we had. So we can open it up to questions.
Megan, you said, Megan and Nathan, you said that you'd give us a little bit more information about the tunnel. Will the tunnel be completely closed off under the highway, and people will assess I-5 by just, I see on the map there like a little a little bike lane going across behind the work area? Is that, I just,
Jump in
I
there.
wasn't sure on that.
We're not closing the tunnel.
Okay.
The only path that right now, there's a diagonal path that runs from the signal over to the path that goes through the tunnel.
Okay.
That path, we're gonna put in a temporary route that follows that dotted line you see in the drawing there, the marked detour.
Right.
Right where that arrow is, it connects with an existing path. We're not removing, that will go down and go through that tunnel.
Okay.
The only issue is that the existing path we're going to have drill equipment sitting in there. So we're going to temporarily pull that one out of service. And then at the end of the project, we're going to put it back.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. Anybody have any questions? Any raised hands? What do we got?
I have a question.
Anybody? Go ahead.
Nathan, the unstable soil, you're trying to stabilize loose soils for
Yes.
this testing program. May I ask, please, the primary reason that you decided to, the IBR team experts decided to, that the existing bridge was not salvageable, was the fact that the piling were in unstable soils. Are these opportunities to stabilize soils appropriate for under the bottom of the river as well as where you're doing them? In other words, if you can stabilize unstable soils on Hayden Island, could you do the same for the soils under the water that the existing piling for the existing bridge are in? Can you stabilize those piling soils?
Unfortunately, no. the way the current bridge is constructed, back in 1917 when the first crossing was constructed, the way it was constructed is they pounded timber piles into the soil in the bottom of the river, correct?
And
And
those
then
are, you've deemed them unstable.
Yes, what basically, when you pound a piling into the ground, the way it's determined stable is by resistance. So you hit it and you hit it, and eventually you can't hit it any harder for it to go any deeper.
Well, if
Does that make sense?
Well, having engineered a number of pilings, when you can't drive it any deeper, that implies to me that those gravel sandy soils are not particularly unstable.
The challenge,
or they hit a boulder.
and again, and I'm not.
We're getting into the weeds here.
No,
Regardless,
we're into the
you
weeds.
answered the question. So those stabilization techniques aren't applicable to the soil.
Under the bridge.
They're applicable to soils in HiNooN Island, but about 30 feet down, they're not applicable, you're saying.
Well, what happens in an earthquake? The big concern is seismic stability and liquefaction of soils. And the concern you have is you have a massive amount of weight, the bridge, sitting on top of those piles.
And you have a massive amount of weight on HiNooN Island as well, while you're stabilizing the soil.
So when the ground starts shaking and that soil liquefies, that weight and those piles will settle further into the riverbed. And that's the concern. That's the concern of the existing bridge.
And it's the concern with the foundations on HiNooN Island, which is why you're doing the testing to make sure those soils are not going to liquefy.
Correct.
But the techniques you're using on HiNooN Island, you're saying aren't appropriate for the soils at the bottom of the Columbia. You can't stabilize those soil.
We're looking at this soil hardening for the approaches to the bridge.
And those soil hardening techniques aren't appropriate for the area, for the soils surrounding the existing piling, you're saying?
The existing pilings, yes. You'd have to remove the bridge to go harden or work through the bridge. It would be very, very cost prohibitive.
One of the options you're looking at is grouting. You could not grout down to those existing piles. You couldn't push grout down around those existing pilings and harden that soil?
Not successfully, I don't believe. And again, the challenge you have is you have the existing bridge in the way. So now you have to work through that bridge.
But grouting, my experience with pressure grouting has been that you pump anyway. I'm sorry, HiNooN, we're getting into the weeds. May I?
You're getting into the ground.
In the ground.
Yes.
May I discuss this with you some point, please?
And I'll just add on to what Nathan said. I think, so we have done past assessments of small steps or lower cost steps that could be taken to make the current bridge more seismically resilient and maybe addressing some of those things. But at the end of the day, 650-ton counterweights hanging over the top of the bridge deck, there's no feasible way to make that earthquake resilient. And in an earthquake, it would likely collapse into the bridge deck. So even if you were able to address the stability underground, it doesn't address the counterweights hanging over the roadway. So this is why
you mentioned you've done 3 studies. May I ask what those were, please?
I don't think I said 3. We've done past ones.
Well,
we have copies of them. I am sure they are in my email, and we have sent them to folks before. Yep.
Nathan, you're the expert. Have you reviewed those, please?
I have not. I came to the project about a year ago.
So
with taskings that we were going to be hardening soils, and I guess from an engineer standpoint,
I just like that. There have been 3 studies, and that concluded the existing bridge was not seismically. Okay, Nathan, can we talk? I would like to talk to you on public record about this, or if not you. And by the way, may I interject? That is a great backdrop you have, because that is one beautiful bridge. Anyway, I would like to talk to somebody about this subject, if you could please, either you or somebody else with your team, give me some time to discuss this on public record, please.
So I don't know how much you visit our website. We do have office hours appointments, and you could request to meet with Nathan. And then we
Thank
would
you.
have a note taker in the meeting so
Oh,
that we are
boy.
copying down what
That
you
would be
say.
great.
Or are you looking for another presentation?
No,
I
I'm
hear
looking-
laughs at me
No,
suggesting
I'm
that.
simply
So
looking for someone. I thought perhaps Nathan had some had reviewed the previous reports. I'm looking for somebody to discuss that particular item about the
Okay.
seismic vulnerability. of
Thank
the-
you, Robert.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good
we're done.
points. I think probably office hours would be the best if we could
Yeah.
make an
Oh,
appointment.
yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Hey, I have a question, and I'm stealing the question from someone else, but what can we go and talk a little bit about the level of noise, vibration, and air pollution residents should expect from the ground improvement testing? Truck traffic, drilling, heavy machinery. What can we expect here as neighbors on the island from the testing?
I'm going to say for this time of year, you're going to see very little dust.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we were hoping to do this earlier in the year, so we weren't going to be dealing with as much mud as we are anticipating. Fortunately, we're in a very contained little piece of land, the former ODOT parking lot and that little area. It's kind of a low point. Now, I know Hayden Island is composed of many, many low points, but this area, fortunately, what we're going to do in this area will be able to contain easily in that space. We have environmental specs that we have to follow to minimize any kind of offsite tracking of dirt.
Mhm.
As for noise, there will be a little bit, but we're not doing any pile driving or picket pounding. So it's going to be just the general machine noise that you would hear of like cranes around the area and the like. There shouldn't be anything special. I don't know if you've noticed, but the former building was brought down over this last
Yep.
week.
Mhm.
That I would expect would be the loudest it would have been. It will be for the rest of the year. Now I know that can be loud when the big backhoes are swinging away at blocks of concrete. That can be a little noisy. The fortune of our work is we only have very confined sections of time, like half a week, where we'll be actually putting these technologies into the ground. So where it will look very dramatic, it'll mobilize in and then mobilize out fairly quickly.
and it is
Thank you.
during the daytime. So right, so during typical hours, daytime hours of work.
Which is absolutely
Great.
awesome. I've had some jobs in the middle of the night, and that can become very tiring.
Sure. Thank you. Very good. Questions, everybody? What's going on? Everyone's kind of quiet out there. So just to reconfirm what Nathan just said, the only areas that are going to be tested are going to be in that ODOT parking lot. That's the only, you're not striking out anywhere else on the island. It'll all be contained to that parking lot, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
The street south of there, I was informed it was private ownership, so I've warned our contractor they're not to have any equipment that direction. I
Okay.
think there is going to be a water truck, but I think we'll be going to the ODOT yard underneath the existing bridge to fill up a water truck because there's a lot of water used in jet grouting.
Sure.
So get a big tank of water filled so they can use that. But that would be the only out and about piece of truck traffic you'd see other than the equipment coming in and going out.
Good. Any
I
other
don't-
questions? Tom?
Well, I have a couple notes here. Do we have to worry about contamination in the surrounding wetlands and marinas or anything while you're doing this work? Is there any things set
No.
up to prevent contamination?
That's in fact what
Or
we
need
are
for it?
testing. That is in fact what we're
Oh.
testing. We have monitoring wells that we're looking for transverse spread is what it's called. Is essentially when you start putting concrete into the ground, things like pH and temperature change, and that's what we're trying to determine. So we have a series of wells that will be contained within our right of way to see what those profiles look like. So in our local areas around the well, I'm not going to say it's going to be contaminated, but we're injecting concrete into the ground. And then we want to see what kind of spread we would encounter, because I think some of the bigger questions are when we're doing these to support the future bridge, we don't want to contaminate any of the community and the land on HiNooN Island. So we want to know how this is going to perform in this sand. And that's why this is more of a testing program than a construction program.
Mhm. Mhm. Good.
Will the study be public once you finish it? We'll be able to see it
It's
somewhere?
it's a public document. I'm not sure
I-
to how it would be released, but we have no secrets in the IBR. Most of that stuff, that website is very comprehensive of a lot of information out there.
We
You'll
would
probably end up in
primarily,
files.
sorry, I think the goal is to make it available to future contractors and designers. But if folks are interested, they can request it and we can provide it. So
Mhm.
like Nathan says, no secrets.
And then also there'll probably be a few media pieces done on the work, since naturally you're going to put a big piece of equipment up in the air. Everybody's going to have questions. Just like the motor carrier building coming down. It's not an IBR project, but you put a piece of backhoe where we've been talking about building a bridge, people are going to start thinking we're building a bridge. I've usually shared that that's part of an ODOT project to remove that old facility, but it's not the IBR yet.
Bob Ortblad had his hand up. Did you have
Yes,
something to
could
say?
I ask a few questions?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a master's in civil engineering, so I've had a little experience.
I think
And
I've read a few of your articles online.
Now I've
I
been
didn't
following
know
this
you
project
lived on Hayden Island, Bob.
Well, let's not be snide.
That's not snide.
It's public money. Yeah. Okay. Basically, I went to your website and it said you're doing this to determine how it's going to affect wooden piles out in the river. That to me, didn't make any sense. I mean, you're talking about,
I'd have
if
to
you
go
go to
look
your
at-
website, you're actually referencing the wooden piles supporting the bridge, and you're trying to determine what the characteristics of the material is out in the river.
I think we're pretty aware of what's out there. I think there may just.
I think you are pretty aware out there. You've spent about $12 million in the CRC and some other people, and you did it recently. But if you read your article, it's pretty misleading because you keep referencing wooden piles out in the river, which makes no sense to me. Okay.
No,
So you might want to correct your website for one thing. Okay.
I think there may be some linkage about the reason we're doing this work is because.
Well, you can pull it up right now and see. There's a lot of reference to wooden piles out in the river to this project, this $2 million Keller project. Okay. The other question is, if you look at the current design, over 50% of the stuff that's going across HiNooN Island is going to be elevated on piers. So you're going to be on drilled shafts. So you really don't need to stabilize the soil for drilled shafts. You're going to go down 100 feet or whatever on drilled shafts like you're on the river, right?
Potentially, that design has not been.
Yeah, but
other than concept level, yeah.
But if you look at all the drawings, if the thing's going to be 30 feet in the air, over 100 yards wide across HiNooN Island, it's going to be a monster. Okay. Okay. So anyway, I just want to point that out that this stabilizing is only going to be for maybe a few on and off ramps that I can see. $2 million for a few on and off ramps on pounded sand that's been there for 100 years. So just more and more consultant studies. I mean, we're up to almost $14 million in geotech studies, counting the CRC and the current one now. I mean, I went back and looked at all the reports, Shannon and Wilson and whatever. There's a whole bunch of them out there, but it's about $14 million. The other point I'd like to make, we're talking about the piling out there. I went back in the history of this project. On each one of those piers, there's 90, 120-foot wooden piers that are driven into that river, 100 feet deep. And they're very tight. They're only a few feet apart. So they actually compact the sand, just like your piles would be, your stone piles and your concrete piles. They compact the sand. And there's a Japanese study. The Japanese know earthquakes probably way better than we do. They did a study and said if you drive piles very close and compact the sand, it makes them basically liquefaction immune. So basically liquefaction, even a major earthquake, is not going to go down more than 30, 40 feet, and these things go down 100 feet. So I think the IBR is wildly exaggerated the risk of the bridge to sell a new bridge. I think maintaining the existing bridge makes a whole lot of sense. And I've been an advocate of a tunnel, which makes a whole lot of sense too, because you don't need all these drilled shafts to go to 100 feet. They basically carry, the weight's carried by buoyancy. So anyway, that's my point. I think you need to amend your little write-up about the Keller thing, because you're somehow confusing wooden pilings with Hayden Island. There's no wooden pilings at Hayden Island, for all I know.
It says that it's supported on timber piles in liquefiable soil. So I think there's a reference to soil, which is what we are trying to address.
Oh, I know, but that's not the point of what you're doing. You're doing everything for Hayden Island with columns. Yeah.
Well,
And again, that's sort of fallacious, I think. Actually, well, let me make one more point. The Aurora Bridge in Seattle is, and I'm not sure, it's only got 2 piers. Each one has maybe several hundred wooden pilings underneath the 2 piers. About a decade ago, Seattle went back and retrofitted that bridge. They didn't do anything about the wooden piles. And we are in a much worse earthquake zone than you are down there. It's a much serious, more earthquake zone up in Puget Sound than it is down the Columbia River. And the city of Seattle went back and retrofitted that bridge and did nothing about their wooden piles. They figure they're just fine. They've been there for, since 1930 something. Yeah. So I think the IBRs really oversold the risk of a collapse of the bridge to sell this mega project. Thank you.
may I interject?
I'll just add, we do also have a lot of information in the draft supplemental environmental impact statement where we share the reasons that contribute to it being an earthquake risk. So there's actually a whole subchapter on it, which I'm sure that you have read, Bob. Yes.
I've read it all. I
know.
I did a what do you call it, a public disclosure request for a study
I know.
on the existing bridge. They sent me a 1,600-page document that was meant that had nothing to do with the existing bridge. It was all about the CRC bridge back then. There is no study out there that defines the risk of the existing bridge. There's a whole lot of PR. You've spent 25 million or so on public relations saying it's going to fall down, but there is no technical study on that bridge in terms of earthquake risk.
May I just quickly, please, comment?
Okay,
Another engineer.
Robert?
This is Bob. Let's say Bob Ortblad is wrong about the seismic ability of those piling to withstand the ability of those piling, the liquefaction. Let's say he's wrong about that subsoil not being able to handle an earthquake. Doesn't it make sense that if you're testing on land, the technology that will improve those soils on land would improve those soils underwater? Let's just say Bob's wrong. And those piling aren't stable because of soils. You're over here doing testing right now, which is the subject of this meeting, to stabilize soils 30 foot higher than the same darn soils underwater.
They're actually doing that in British Columbia. They had some old railroad bridges built on pilings. They just went out and put more pilings next to it.
And by the way,
to compact the soil. In British Columbia, if there's a British Columbia studies that did exactly what you're saying, they just put in more piling tighter right next to the existing ones to compact it and make it more stable. So it's not rocket science.
And if I may, I don't have a master's in engineering, but I was in fact the lead engineer on the 2 biggest public marinas, both of which had a lot of piling, Washougal Marina and Kalama. I know river work and I know piling, and Bob Ortblad, I don't know if he's right, but what Bob says makes sense to this engineer who has considerable design and construction engineering on piling in the Columbia River.
Let me,
And I'll
Let me
just
make one-
add,
go
and
ahead.
I know that you guys know this, but I will. The program is proposing to address earthquake vulnerability alongside 5 other problems that have been identified. So, issues with freight movement and not lack of transit options across the river, 3.5 to 4 foot wide bike and pedestrian path. And I'm sure you guys never have to sit in traffic from the existing bridge because it never impacts the roads on Hayden Island. Even
Right.
here in downtown Vancouver, it backs up into downtown Vancouver all the time. So not everyone buys off on every reason to replace the bridge, but I'm hopeful that everyone can identify that at least one of those issues needs to be addressed.
all right, well, one of them can be addressed, but you don't need to tear down the old bridge.
And I don't hear any ideas for how to make the counterweights earthquake resilient so that the 900 tons and 650 ton counterweights hanging over the roadway deck, there is no way to keep them up there in an earthquake. So you are right, there may be improvements that could be made that would address a portion of the vulnerability in an earthquake, but it would not make it as earthquake, it would not withstand an earthquake as well as a replacement bridge,
Oh,
alongside the other benefits of a replacement bridge.
Oh,
replacement
Rob,
with hydraulic.
Rob Lewis has
Replacement-
his,
And replacement with
Bob?
hydraulics, you don't need counterweights, you can replace them with hydraulics. It's not a big issue.
And
Rob Lewis has had his hand up for a while.
Sure,
Let's let
I'll
him
let go.
speak.
Thank you.
I've just heard that there's an ongoing need by the IBPR to complete assessment of earthquake risk for the existing bridge. And clearly that study, even though we were led to believe there was government money that was provided for that study in fact was never done. So if you don't really fully understand the earthquake variability and the earthquake risk, and if you have acknowledged, as you have publicly, that the only reason the general public wants this in the first place is to improve traffic flow, and you've acknowledged that's not going to happen. Why are we doing this at this point? I mean, why are we even talking about this? It seems to me you've got to go back to step one. If you've got an existing bridge that you don't fully understand its earthquake vulnerability, why are you wasting our time in 12 billion or whatever it's going to ultimately cost to do this? This is absurd. This is absolutely absurd. And when you consider the fact that a submerged tunnel, as Bob Orblad will tell you, has been proven to be effective, would cost a fraction of the existing cost, that you summarily dismissed with erroneous information about its ability to be performed, where our engineers, other engineers have shown that it can be performed. Why isn't this being considered as an alternative? You don't even have government funding, for gosh sakes, and yet you're going to start drilling samples? What's the matter with you people?
Rob, I think we have to be a little more respectful. I think it's
Excuse me.
somebody
With
else.
all due respect, why are you doing this when you haven't completed? When you haven't completed,
I can't.
Go ahead.
This is a meeting for a specific reason, and they had an agenda, and there's people that have years of experience and years of being angry and upset about this, but this is really not the meeting to be doing this, in my opinion. Respectfully, this is not going to solve any problems, and it's been already mentioned and written about and posted about, and it's really frustrating as a newer person in this area and on this board to see how futile, unfortunately, this is, and it's just not helping at this moment, in my opinion. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you, Evie. I appreciate that. You guys, let's go back to the discussion of any questions for Nathan and Megan, specifically related to the ground testing. Can we, is there anyone else that has any questions relating to specifics?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Tom's had his hand up for a while.
Megan, you said a while ago that the project has been very open about what's what they're doing. And we have asked over and over and over to get accurate drawings and pictures that of what the bridge will look like, and you won't do it. You won't show us what it'll look like, and we keep asking, and you say we'll do it, and you don't do it. And so that I don't trust a thing you say.
Sure. Oh, okay.
And
We have 2 spots on our website that show, I think we've released 3, maybe 4 different sets of images from different viewpoints on each different bridge configuration. And we have videos showing what each of the different options would look like. So I can link to that in the chat also. We have a lot on the website. I know that folks want to feel what it would be like walking within each location from each individual viewpoint. I don't think we could address every single spot that everyone would want to see, but we do have a lot of options on the website where we are trying to get at that request. We really have adjusted and I guess released new images in order to try to address the request that we do keep hearing. You're right. So I will link to that. There we go. Kevin put it in the chat.
okay,
So
thank you.
there's
Kim-
videos on there and some newer visualizations that we released earlier this summer that I think are probably some of the ones that most address what you are asking about.
So Kimberly has a question.
Okay.
We can't hear you. Ask on. You're muted.
Muted.
There we go.
Okay.
All right.
There you
Sorry.
go.
Back to the ground testing, just to get us kind of back on track. I know that we submitted several questions from the Hayden Island community, concerns we have from the reports, the environmental reports and impacts from both the Multnomah County and Washington County health departments. I hope that those will be addressed at a later date. Just to stay on topic for today, my questions would be, when will work begin? Exactly. You said you're already staging. Will there be a direct contact if residents have questions or concerns regarding this procedure, such as accelerated noise levels or disturbances? I know you mentioned earlier the testing that happened. I spoke to a gentleman that lives in the floating homes that said a barge just showed up in front of his floating home when the last testing occurred. He didn't know why it was there. He didn't know when it was going to leave. He didn't know what was happening. He reached out to IBR. He got no information. And so I think residents are going to have questions. If noise levels exceed expectations, if there are concerns, can we expect that they would be addressed? And is there a direct contact in order to have those questions or concerns addressed during this initial testing phase?
Absolutely.
So
The short
I
answer
was-
is me.
yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm fighting a cold. I was about ready to cough. The short answer is you contact me. And I'm not sure where my contact information is floating around, but I can definitely forward it onto the group. For the test program,
I'll
that's
put it in
going
the chat, Nathan.
perfect. Thank you. If there's an issue with the current activities going in the former motor carrier parking lot, that's my responsibility is to be able to respond to questions about what's happening and when it's going to happen. Like I said, right now, what we're doing is just some sample coring. I pulled the schedule up to give you some idea. The vibrostone columns, we're looking at starting the first week of December.
Okay.
The second week of December, we'll be done with those columns and we'll be experimenting with the DSM, deep soil mixing. And the week after that, the 15th, we'll be doing the jet grouting.
Will that schedule be published somewhere so it can be shared with community members, and also a contact for concerns or questions when it begins?
Let me figure out how to do that. The challenge is
So
dealing
hold
with
on.
constructor and how they can mobilize their equipment. Go ahead. I think Megan was going to jump in and say
Right.
me.
Well, I think, and maybe you folks are interested in the schedule per different type of testing. The website does give an overall schedule of when it would start and end. We usually don't get into that level of detail that Nathan said, only because then we would have to communicate if some issue came up, contractor couldn't go out there, or some other project interrupted, then we then have to go back out to every single person and say, here's what changed. What we typically communicate is how you will be impacted, not what type of work is occurring on which date. So once the sidewalk access changes, we will communicate that further. But right now, kind of the overall schedule is on the website. We do have a hotline for noise complaints, because that is monitored more often than Nathan probably is monitoring his email. But Nathan can respond to questions if you have them on the day-to-day. If you have an issue that is occurring in that moment, there is a hotline listed on the website that I posted in the chat.
Okay.
And I mean, we can email more information. I guess I will just say it may change, and so we don't usually get that granular in what we share. We focus on communicating how your travel and how you access things will be impacted, and not necessarily on what work is happening in which section of ODOT's existing land on any given day.
So I would say if you're able to email us a tentative schedule of what's going to happen, so residents know what to expect. And the hotline and Nathan's contact information, if there's more detailed questions. I just don't ever want a resident to feel like there is a barge parked in front of my floating home. I don't know why, and I contact IBR and they won't get back to me. I just don't want that scenario to happen to residents again. And if you could email that information that we can get out through HiNooN, through the emails that we send out to residents, that would be very helpful. So residents feel a little more supported with what's going on and feel like their questions would be answered. That would be very helpful.
Megan dropped my email in there, and I'm more than happy to respond.
It's very difficult sometimes to find your way through the IBR's website to find what it is you're looking for. So if there was some way to, when it's critical to you as a resident, it would be nice, like Kimberly said, if we could just email that and we could get an answer.
I've gone on to the IBR website. I typed in Hayden Island, nothing comes up. So the search bar is not very helpful, and it is a lot of information to go through. So obviously HiNooN in this group is very centric to Hayden Island residents and their concerns. And if we could have an email that would explain that further without having to go through the myriad of your website trying to figure things out, that would be very helpful.
Yeah.
Sure. And that's the reason we're doing this presentation, you guys. That's why we are here, so that we are communicating before the core of the work starts. And I will add, and the barge in the river, we will communicate ahead of when that happens too. I think that person, he's commented and he has reached out to IBR. He moved in right before that work started. So I think there may have been a miss in terms of him getting the mail and knowing who to reach out to. But this is the reason we're here. And we put Nathan's email in the chat. I will say the reason we don't usually hand out direct email addresses is because people won't only email about the project that Nathan is working on. And this is a very big project, and Nathan does not have every answer, and you will get bounced around to different emails. So we usually have it all go through one central inbox to make sure that things are tracked and that you guys get responses to your questions instead of being kicked around to people that are working on different aspects of the project. So still happy to provide Nathan's email, and I posted the link to the website in the chat. It was also in the slides. I think we provided the slides to you ahead of time, but we can send them again, and that has all the information in it at a high level, and then the link to the website for people to get more information, including the hotline to the noise hotline.
I was going to also offer Megan that if I get asked a question that's not part of the work, I will probably be forwarding it into that hopper, because we have a very developed system inside the IBR of trying to get that in front of the correct subject matter experts, so you do get an answer. And I think the engagement is important. That's what we're honestly looking for. We don't want to be surprised. We want to be engaged. And often it's just trying to find the right person. And like I think your team is trying to figure out is how can they engage with IBR? I'm more than to throw myself on that grenade for the next couple of months while we're doing this making a bunch of mud in the parking lot of the former road office, and then we'll go away until we see the environmental impact statement, and then we'll probably be trying to get some projects going. And I think you'll see a lot more engagement. You'll see a lot more details, because a lot of cases we don't have those details because we don't have the designer and we don't have the constructor. So we're not going to see a schedule until we have those people on board.
Well, as
I have
long as
one more question.
as
from
long as
Sam
there's some
Russo.
sort of strategy communications
Oh.
plan in place that we can engage with, that would be great if you could share that with us. What your strategy communications plans are, that would be very helpful for our residents.
Nathan, could I ask one favor?
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
Go back and read your Hayden Island ground improvement website write-up. Twice you refer to.
I'm gonna go try and answer the questions you asked.
Twice you refer to timber piles and liquefaction, which has nothing to do with what you're doing on Hayden Island, on these stone piles and so forth. I mean, you're confusing the issue. Let's put it that way. Just remove any reference to timber piles.
And I think the issue, and again, I'm not going to argue the point here, but what we're doing on Hayden Island is we're testing soil strengthening methods. That's all we're doing to provide data to the future.
I know, I understand entirely.
How they use that data,
but you reference the timber piles out in the middle of the river twice as liquefaction and danger, whatever. You confusing the issue. Yeah.
So I'd like to interrupt because we've already discussed this for a little bit.
Sure, okay.
And I know that Sam Churchill's been trying to ask a question for about a half an hour, so I'd like him to have a chance.
I have a 3-year-old that needs me to get to bed, so this is the last question, and then we gotta go.
Okay, Sam.
Thanks, Megan.
Sam, did you leave now after all?
Well, my question is,
uh-oh.
You're
not coming through.
So
he put his question in the chat, I think.
Right? Great. So what impact will that have? I mean, it can't be none on IBR. What impact do you think that's going to have?
Sure. He put his question in the chat, which is the one I will respond to. And I think that's what you said, Sam, but you broke up. Your question is, with Chris Strickler, ODOT director gone, and Greg Johnson, IBR director gone in 30 days, what impact will it have on IBR in general? So what I would say is that Greg has been leading this project for 5 years. He is leading a team full of people. He has a WSDOT director below him, or assistant director below him, and an ODOT assistant director below him. So there will be consistency in carrying on the work that Greg has done. And then in addition to that, they brought on an interim director who has past experience on this project and is local to the region and has it understands the community on both sides of the river and understands the agencies on both sides of the river. And so her name's Carly Francis. She will come in as the interim project director while they do a national search. And then she has those assistant directors supporting her from both agencies. So while we are sad to see Greg go and a lot was accomplished under what he did, we do have a lot of consistency in the team that will carry on the work that he has been doing for the last 5 years. And then there are folks even below that do other work beyond leading the program or in support of leading the program, and they are staying.
Megan and Nathan, before you go, I would like to say thank you very much for being here tonight and for answering many of our questions. Also, there is a letter that Latricia is going to forward you that is all of our concerns for Hayden Island. It's not specifically just for the ground testing. And so if you could maybe share some of that with the appropriate parties, we would love to, as you can hear in our voices and our messages, we feel like we've gotten less attention from the IBR project and that we are collateral damage here. And so we are, that's why we're disgruntled in many ways. So if you could share the letter with the appropriate parties and maybe get us some answers, that would be fabulous. We appreciate that very much.
And I did read the letter ahead of this meeting.
Okay, great.
I don't know I did a quick skim and I tried to compare, but I
Sure.
had a lot going on today. I don't know how much it overlaps with the comments you made on the draft SEIS. And I know folks are eager to see how we would address their concerns or how we will respond to those concerns. But the federal process, every time I try to answer the same questions, our
I know.
environmental team says you have to wait, and that we are circumventing the federal environmental process if we share it all
Sure.
ahead of time. So we
Sure.
will do a comparison to see what we can get back to you on in writing, or it may be appropriate to wait until we publish that final environmental document so that you can see the responses from all of the subject matter experts and see what we were able to, if we modified anything in relation to those comments or how we would respond. And then we can set up a follow-up meeting to further discuss them, or if you folks didn't feel like things were adequately addressed, and we can speak to it a little bit more. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you for that. Very good.
Um,
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, you mentioned that there's a lot of new drawings and simulations of what the bridges will look like. Could you somehow get those to us so that we could distribute them rather than having to wade through all of the website?
Sure, we did put a link in the chat, but we can do like a full, we can put in one email all of the resources that we sent you in this.
Would you please
so that
add dimensions to your photos? That's the one thing that we've seen very mentioned. There's no dimensions. We don't know even till today how tall this bridge is going to be over Hayden Island. And you're going to start work early next year?
Right, and so I tried to address that, but I maybe I wasn't direct enough. That's because we do not have that level of detail. We don't know the dimensions yet, because we are not far enough along in design.
Excuse me, but that's incorrect, because you have a CAD drawing that's made a video. Tell me how high that bridge is in your video, and I'd be happy.
Sure, I guess what I'm saying is we have options for potential heights. A single height has not been determined.
What's the height of your bridge in your video? That's what I'm asking for.
We have multiple videos.
You have one video. Tell me how high it is.
We don't know. I don't know.
So I can I can respond to that. I can tell you how high it will be over the river among the different options that are still being considered.
Over Hayden Island is what we're interested in. We've got to walk up to the transit station, don't we?
So may I ask a question, please? Picking up what Gary.
You guys, I have a 3-year-old that needs to go to bed. So
yeah,
we would be happy to come back and keep answering these questions. If you send an email asking for the bridge height, we again, I need more specifics from you to be able to respond to your question. I'm counting on our website. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 8 videos. And so we can pull together some information.
I appreciate your presentation tonight. Our frustration is I filed a public request months ago for at least a bridge height reflected in their video, the flyover video, and I was denied any information.
No. See, Megan, where the angst comes from here.
Sure, and I think it depends how you phrase it. If you asked for bridge designs that show that height, we would tell you we do not have bridge designs, because we don't have bridge designs until we hire the contractor to do those bridge designs.
Flyover video. Any person that knows CAD that generated that video would have to have dimensions. And that's what I'm asking for. What are the dimensions of your flyover video bridge? Is that very hard to answer?
I can answer probably 500 different questions, but the exact height over Hayden Island, I personally do not know. I do know the height over the river, which then determines the height over Hayden Island, but I do not know the height over Hayden Island.
Great. Thank you very much, you guys. I need to let you go. Thank you
you.
guys for all your time and your energy tonight, and we will look forward to talking again and getting some follow-up answers. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Nathan. We appreciate your time and energy.
Thank you.
Take
Yeah.
care.
Sure.
Bye-bye now.